Hi everyone, welcome to the community classroom. This is Dr. Tracy McCarthy, psychologist, attorney, and educator, and we're going to quickly address the topic of the jailhouse lawyer. I'm going to provide you with a resource that individuals can access if individuals have family members who are in jail or at risk of being in jail. This resource is a very valuable one. It is a manual for the quote-unquote jailhouse lawyer. Before we get started though into that, we're going to do a little overview of the manual so that you can see what's inside of it. Before we go into that, however, we're going to quickly overview what an actual lawyer is so that you know the difference and there is no confusion. This does not constitute legal advice. This is an educational project, and so we're going to go over that information, and then we're going to go over some little snippets from the manual so that you can see what is required in terms of reading level, in terms of comprehension, in terms of critical thinking to make use of this manual. And as always, if this video appears on anything other than Dr. Tracy McCarthy, it is stolen and unauthorized. Let's get started. This information is important because there are a number of individuals who are imprisoned at this time, and so this information is valuable for those individuals, and again, those who are at risk for becoming one of those individuals who are in prison. So let's quickly just look at some of these stats. Now, there are some reports that indicate that the prison population is in excess of 2 million. However, the Bureau of Justice Statistics reports 1.5 million at the 2016 mark. And here's a breakdown of many of the crimes that people are convicted of who are serving prison terms. So you have crimes against property and then crimes against persons. And so you have property crime and violent crimes. And you also have a growing number of individuals convicted of things related to cyber theft. And so this is individuals using online methods to get money from other people that they shouldn't have. So it involves embezzlement, fraud, theft of intellectual property, theft of personal and financial information, just using the internet to steal money, in other words. And there are also individuals who are involved in computer security incidents, and so they're involved in using spyware and adware and hacking and phishing and those sorts of things. Before we go any further into looking at the jailhouse lawyer manual or even talking about that topic, we're going to quickly go over what an attorney/lawyer is. There is a lot of confusion out there, and many people, particularly on the internet now, are purporting to be legal specialists when they are not. And so they may be running afoul of the law, but you need to know, in terms of getting information from people, particularly online, you need to know what a lawyer actually is versus what people might be telling you it is. Okay, so basically, a lawyer is a person who, first of all, has a 4-year undergraduate degree. The degree is open. People major in anything from mathematics to political science to history. You also, after that, you get a 3-year degree, and it's a Doctor of Jurisprudence, and so that's law school. After that, you take a bar exam, but prior to the bar exam, for most jurisdictions, there is a state Supreme Court background check of some sort, and it usually involves things like a legal background check to look for criminal background, and that includes juvenile. Some people think that a sealed juvenile record means that it's sealed forever, but this is the Supreme Court, so they do have access to unsealing those records. And so you also have financial, and some states are more stringent than others related to this. Then you have mental health, and so yes, they do check to see if there is a significant mental health history and what that history is about. You also then you take the bar exam. So if you're approved to take the bar exam, you take the bar exam, and depending on the jurisdiction, the bar exam is generally going to be 2 to 3 days. And so you have two portions. You have what's known as the multi-state that covers law generally, and then you have one that is focused on the state, that particular jurisdiction. If all goes well and the person passes the background check and the bar exam, then they will be confirmed and they go and they have a swearing-in ceremony. Now let's quickly go over the Jailhouse Lawyer's Manual. Again, this is a great resource and you'll see exactly why as we go through the table of contents. And a little caveat, what they prefer is that if people are able to afford it, that they actually pay for the book. But they do indicate that if you are printing chapters for this manual and you're doing it for someone other than yourself, make sure to include the title page to this. And you also want to include the legal disclaimer. This is the disclaimer here, and what they are basically explaining is the law prohibits us from providing any legal advice to prisoners, and so this is a community service project that they have embarked upon. And so it's a community service project. It's a sort of a pro bono assistance program, but it is not legal advice. So it's an educational program for those who are in prison. And for those of you who don't know, attorneys basically do what's known as pro bono work. And some of that pro bono work may involve actually providing legal services, but sometimes it involves doing community service education projects, such as the community classroom. Now we're just going to go over this very quickly so that you can see what's inside of it. And this is the 11th edition of this manual. So it covers how to use the manual. Then it goes over a very extensive introduction related to legal research. It talks about your right to learn the law and to go to court, how to find an attorney, which is very important, and how to choose a court and a lawsuit. And some other important topics here are an introduction to legal documents, very important, freedom of information, obtaining information to prepare for your case, applying for resentencing. It has habeas corpus information in here. So again, very important information in here for anyone who is concerned about these issues. And here is additional information related to the Prison Litigation Reform Act. You have information related to grievances while people are actually in prison, and information related to prison disciplinary proceedings and the right to communicate with the outside world. And there is some specific information related to Florida, New York, and Michigan inside of the manual. There's also information related to the right to medical care. You have information related to the right to be free from assault by prison guards and other prisoners, the right to be free from illegal bodily searches, information related to infectious diseases, and religious freedom in prison. And here you can see there's a chapter on prisoners with disabilities, prisoners with mental illness, information for LGBT. You have information related to security classification and gang validation. You also have information related to parole and the rights of incarcerated parents. And here you can see additional information related to conditional and early release, special considerations for sex offenders, rights upon release, rights of juveniles who are in prison, temporary release programs, plea bargaining, and special issues for women prisoners. And the manual includes a number of appendices. Now, the manual is not a quick how-to sort of manual. This manual requires significant critical thinking and critical reading. It is required. And so these are some samples from the manual so that you can see the level of critical thinking and critical reading required. Again, it is important for you to do your own research and your own reading. Sometimes people listen to other people on the internet because people sound like they know what they are talking about. And they sound very confident. However, that's also what a con artist does. A con artist sounds very confident as they are conning. And so sometimes people get very bad information and then they act on that very bad information, or they refrain from acting based upon some bad information they receive about the law, about legal principles. And so it's important, again, for you to read for yourself and for you to read critically. The law is not about your feelings. The law is about the law. And so you need to understand the law if you are going to be thinking about the law, talking about the law, and operating within the law. And so in this chapter, it's chapter 2, and it's an introduction to legal research, a very important topic. And so what it does is it goes over things like telling you that you need to understand both the powers and functions of the courts. And this is something that many people don't understand. They don't understand how the judicial system is organized, how it works. They don't understand the role of the judiciary in relation to the executive branch and the legislative branch. And so these are things that you need to understand in order to best use this type of manual. And this is another sample, and what this talks about is the basis of judicial decision making. What is the law? And this is very important because sometimes people don't understand what actually constitutes law. And so this actually gives a great overview of not only what constitutes law, but this dynamic of persuasiveness in terms of what is required in order to convince a judge that the law supports your arguments. Not feelings support your arguments, not opinions support your arguments, but that the law supports your arguments. And many people talk about habeas corpus a lot. You hear this also in a lot of these quote unquote indigenous conscious conversations. Again, you need to read for yourself so that you understand what habeas corpus is. It is not, generally speaking, what many people think it is. And so there is a section in the manual that talks about habeas corpus so that you can read it for yourself and know exactly what it is and what it is not. Now, if someone uses this manual in order to do some teachings on the internet or even in the community, just again, make sure that you make it clear to people that you are providing an educational resource and that you are not an attorney unless you are actually an attorney, so that people don't detrimentally rely on something that you might be saying that may be inaccurate in terms of the totality of the law. And also, if you are teaching, it's always helpful to send the students right back to the original source so that they can read it for themselves, interpret it for themselves, and understand it for themselves. Remember, knowledge is power. Take care and see you soon.